Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell here, and this week something was announced, and if you weren't looking too closely, you might have missed it. It's a concept for a new type of investing account that would allow people to hide a bunch of their income from the CRA so that they don't have to pay as much at tax time, and then take that money, invest it, again tax-free, until they have enough to buy a home. So in this video, we're going to talk about how it all works, some major ways that you might be able to benefit from this, why only certain people are going to be able to use it, as well as some other major problems that you're going to want to know about. But before we do, a quick reminder that the coupon code down there in the description for the Canada Money Mastery program, well, that is going to be expiring shortly as we add new content to that program. So if you're interested in it, make sure to check it out before the price goes up there. But without further ado, let's get into this information about this brand new potential account that you could be using in the future. This new account is called an FHSA. And it's kind of like two of the most popular investing account types in Canada, an RRSP and a TFSA, got together and had a baby. So in order to understand how this FHSA works, we're going to first do a quick crash course on how an RRSP and a TFSA work and how you can actually use them to build personal wealth. An RRSP is a registered retirement savings plan, and each year you can deposit a set amount based on your income into that RRSP. Now, when you deposit that money into the RRSP, that amount, whatever amount it is that you deposited, gets hidden from the CRA when it comes time for them to calculate how much you're going to have to pay in tax. So essentially, when you deposit this money into the RRSP, you're going to end up paying less at tax time than you otherwise would have. Let's take a look at the impact this can actually have on you. Now, everybody gets taxed at a different rate and has different amounts that they can contribute to the RRSP each year, but for this example, we're just going to stick with round numbers to keep the math simple for me. Let's say that your tax rate is at 30%, and this year you're able to deposit $5,000 into your RRSP account. Now, with that $5,000 at a 30% tax rate, typically around tax time, if you made $5,000 in income, well, at that 30% tax rate, you would have to pay $1,500 in tax. Now, the beauty of an RRSP is that if you had deposited this $5,000 into an RRSP instead of reporting it on your income, remember an RRSP can sort of hide away that income when it comes time to calculate how much you're going to have to pay. Well, instead of paying $1,500 on that $5,000 that you've made in income, well, because you deposited it in an RRSP, you wouldn't have to pay a dime. You'd only have to pay $0 on that $5,000 of income. When you put money into this RRSP, the beauty is you don't have to just leave it in a savings account where you're earning less than a percentage in interest each year. You can actually open up an RRSP account that allows you to invest in assets like stocks and ETFs, which typically go up in value over time. Usually when you eventually sell an investment, you have to pay something called capital gains tax. Essentially the government saying, hey, we noticed you did pretty well on this investment, we want our piece of the pie. But with an RRSP, when you sell your investments, you actually don't have to pay capital gains tax at all. So that's one of the benefits. But after you sell your investments and actually want to take that money out of the RRSP so that you can use it, the CRA will consider that as income. So that's one of the downsides. That's why it's called a registered retirement savings plan, because the idea is that you're going to put money into the RRSP when you're being taxed at a higher rate, when you're earning a lot of income, and then maybe when you retire and you'd be at a lower tax bracket because you're earning less money, maybe working less, you can take this money out of the RRSP and be taxed at a lower rate than you would have if you had just claimed that income at the time that you made it. I promise we're going to get to this brand new HFSA account because it takes some of the best parts of this RRSP and applies it to itself, but it also takes some of the best parts of its other parent, a TFSA or tax-free savings account. A TFSA has a lot in common with an RRSP because just like an RRSP, you can invest the money that you put inside of the TFSA account, and when you go to sell that investment, you're not going to have to pay any capital gains tax like we talked about before. The major difference is that when you put money into a TFSA account, it doesn't reduce the amount of taxes you have to pay in that year, but on the plus side, when you withdraw from a TFSA, you also don't have to pay tax on that. So whereas an RRSP reduces your taxes when you deposit and increases them when you withdraw, a TFSA is just net neutral. You put it in, doesn't change your tax situation. You take it out, doesn't change your tax situation. But now for the brand new account, the FHSA or First Home Savings Account. This is a new account that was just proposed by the Liberal government as an election promise to try to help deal with the housing affordability issue, with many Canadians feeling like actually owning a home is getting farther and farther out of reach. This is from the Liberals' actual announcement page for this FHSA account, and they say that that, like investing in an RRSP, you're able to deduct the savings you invest from your income when it goes into your first home savings account. And like investing in a TFSA, this is how they're merging things together, this money will be able to compound and grow tax-free until you withdraw up to a maximum of $40,000. We'll talk about that maximum in a moment. They go on to say, to ensure this supports genuine savings towards a first home and the people who need it, integrity measures will be put in place to deter tax avoidance. And then they ask the question, will it stay tax-free? When you take it out to put towards a down payment, it still stays tax-free and doesn't get counted towards your income, tax-free in, tax-free out. So it takes the positive benefit of the RRSP, where when you input money into your RRSP account, it reduces your taxes that year, but then it eliminates the bad part of the RRSP, where when you take money out of the account, well, then you're taxed again on that income when you pull it out of the account to sort of finish out after you've invested it and have decided, hey, maybe I want to spend this money. So at first glance, this sounds pretty good. We've got the best parts of the RRSP and the best parts of the TFSA. What's not to love, right? Well, there are some conditions that are attached to this account, as well as some other problems that I want to show you. The first issue that some Canadians might have with this program is that it is age limited. They say here right on the announcement page that it'll allow Canadians under 40 years old to save up to $40,000 towards their first home. Now, they go into a little bit more detail down here, saying that if the funds are not used for a home purchase by the age of 40, they'll convert back to normal RRSP savings. The idea is that this account is meant for young Canadians trying to save up money for their first home, but the reality is, especially given the way the Canadian real estate market is these days, is that there's many Canadians over the age of 40 who are also trying to save up to buy their first home. So it's a little bit interesting that they use this 40 years old age cap, especially when there's already a stipulation saying that it has to be your first home, right? Why not just have the first home idea and eliminate that age range? I don't really understand that. The second interesting decision that they've made is with that $40,000 cap for this account, and they address that here, saying why $40,000, and they explain it, saying it represents roughly 5% of the average home price in Canada. Now, 5% is the lowest amount typically that you can use as a down payment on a home, so they're saying, hey, this $40,000 max, that should be enough to get you to the down payment of the average Canadian home at $736,000. This $40,000 amount does make sense when you consider the 5% down payment on the average price of a Canadian home, but if history has told us anything, it's that typically in Canada, real estate has gone up and to the right. So if home prices continue to increase quickly, this $40,000 could not be enough. So if the Liberals do get elected, I'd like to see them reconsider this and potentially index this or sort of tie this $40,000 amount to the increased price of housing, right? So if housing goes up 10%, that $40,000 would go up 10% in tandem, meaning that the limit would be increased to $44,000, so that no matter when this program extends to, the minimum down payment of 5% would be the maximum amount you could have in this FHSA account. And potentially the biggest problem of all has to do with the sticky situation that the government probably finds themselves in right now when it comes to tackling this housing crisis. With ideas like this, they're looking to support buyers and make it easier for them to afford a home and get into the housing market and look for a home for them and their families to buy. But adding more buyers to the market is something that's going to increase demand side pressure. Real estate prices largely are tied to supply and demand. If there's more people that want to buy a house than there are people selling them, then that's going to lead to prices going up and vice versa. If this account actually does what it's setting out to do, allowing more buyers to get into the market sooner, well, that would put an upward pressure on real estate prices, potentially counteracting any good this program would do in the first place. It's definitely something to think about, and I'm curious what you think of this all. Are you in support of an account like this, or do you think that there are other solutions that we need to focus on when it comes to this whole housing situation? Let me know down there in the comments. And if you've learned anything from this video, well then check out the Canada Money Mastery program, where we talk all about building wealth right here in Canada. Again, that coupon code will be expiring soon as I get set to add a whole slate of new content to that program, so make sure to check that out if you've ever been interested in it. But with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.